bringing it back to the build-up of SummerSlam '98.
Steve Austin and Undertaker win the tag team titles from Kane and Mankind in the main event of Fully Loaded. Do you think that changes your direction?
No, at the time, like I mentioned earlier, like we were rubbing elbows with all of those guys. Yep. The Outlaws were. Hunter was working with The Rock at this time, and we were kind of finishing up that Nation run, and now on to bigger and better things. And when I say bigger and better things, like literally, like, okay, we're not working with Mark Henry and D'Lo anymore, and no disrespect to those guys because they're both Hall of Famers in my mind. Mm-hmm. But we're now working with Stone Cold, with the Dead Man, with the Kane, with all of them, and it's like, holy mackerel, do we fit here? And we kind of did, and so that was very cool for us to get those. I think it was rubs from those really top stars that kind of made people look at us in that light too. So I thought it was a huge benefit for us to be rubbing elbows with those guys.
You brought up that Austin and Undertaker elevated the status of the titles. Generally speaking, what's your opinion of two guys who aren't a regular tag team holding tag team titles? As a tag team wrestler, what's your opinion?
Well, look, I think you can frown upon that all you want to, and I understand that line of thinking. However, it was Stone Cold and The Undertaker. You know what I mean? Like, I started questioning that reading through the notes, and I thought, if you think putting the tag titles on Stone Cold and The Undertaker in '98 in the top of the, you know what I mean? If you think that diminishes the titles in any way, in the immortal words of Judas Priest, you got another thing coming.
But not diminishing the titles, but does it diminish the other teams in the division when those top guys are running through every tag team? And at that point in those matches, they're kind of dominating at that point in those tag team matches.
For sure.
Does it make everyone else, from an audience perspective, look at the rest of the division as inferior to those significant players?
But maybe. And look, that's, like I said earlier, I totally understand that line of thinking. I just think, like, man, it elevated me and Billy to be in that spot. They didn't have the titles long, so they didn't run through everybody. They didn't dominate everybody. They just had the titles for a minute, and then they lost them again, and then we gained them, like I mentioned earlier, at the SummerSlam we're talking about. So I actually thought it was moving the titles around in there, shaking some things up. I know it was against conventional wisdom. You leave the titles on people for, well, this was like all shaking things up, and after this pay-per-view, we landed in, okay, this is where we're supposed to be now. And then we could start as tag team champions working with those other teams, you know.
Show from East Rutherford would see Kane and Mankind defeat you for the tag team championship.
They cheated.
When D'Lo Brown interferes and cost you guys the titles.
Told you.
Did you know you were going to be getting the tag team titles back at some point, or did you think that the run was over?
No. Look, I knew, or I thought we were going to get them back. That was for sure. And like I said earlier, running them around with, because you're going to see here in a minute, I think Stone Cold and Undertaker win them. And holy mackerel, that just elevated some tag titles. And then they come back around, and of course we end up getting them back at this pay-per-view we're talking about, SummerSlam. So I think I answered that. I'm sorry. I want to say I got lost, but I feel like I answered the question.
You did. So does your pay change when you stop being a champion? So meaning you're still in the same level of the card. You're still doing rematches.
So no, ours did not. And I'll tell you what the deal is. Look, you're in there just like the titles are in there mingling with those top guys. So were the former tag champs, me and Billy Gunn. We're in the ring with all of these very top tier guys. So that really marked us as that kind of talent. And so then when we got the tag team titles back, I feel like they'd actually been elevated, and now they're back on a proper tag team. Well, we were two individual guys that were put together, but we were being built as a proper tag team.